The XtremityTT socket is formed over a positive limb model. Use your preferred casting or scanning method and modification technique to obtain a positive limb model. Remove excessive buildups from around the proximal brim to prevent overstretching of the socket. Maintain a round shape without flattening the posterior wall. Ensure the limb length does not exceed the length of the socket by measuring from the most proximal trim line to the distal end of the limb model. This length should be no more than 29 centimeters. Socket sizing is determined using 3 measurements. First, take a circumferential measurement 4 centimeters from the distal end to determine the socket size. Then, use the length measurement from MPT to the distal end and the circumferential measurement at MPT to determine the socket profile per size, as shown here. Move your finished and smooth limb model to the vacuum stand. Add spacers between the model and vacuum stand to ensure the socket will not contact the stand once it's pulled. Then apply a vacuum nylon. Place the socket into the Xtremity benchtop heating unit and ensure proper alignment on the pedestal. If using size 26 or 26 plus, insert the rubber O-ring around the distal base of the socket and place the lid over the socket base. To begin heating, press the power button to turn the unit on. Press start to accept the temperature, then press start again to accept the time, and start once more to begin heating. The timer will start counting down once the oven reaches the set temperature. Ensure all supplies are laid out next to the vacuum stand. Spray the distal end pad injection valve with mold release. Once the timer alarms, remove the socket from the heating unit by the socket base. Thread the distal end pad injection valve into the distal base using the valve key and then gently pre-stretch the socket. Identify the posterior seam on the outside of the socket. Ensure correct socket rotational alignment using the posterior seam and the medial and lateral distal base cutouts. Use the base plate to push down from the distal end to prevent distal base distortion. Adjust base alignment if needed. Ensure distal contact between the limb model and the distal end pad injection valve. Place a piece of tape over the hole in the injection valve. Then place the valve key over the tape to create a seal and apply vacuum. If using vacuum suspension, using a 5/32" drill bit, drill a hole through the base vacuum port. Remove the bit from the drill and place the smooth end of the drill bit into the hole you just drilled to seal it. This will create a vacuum channel through the distal end pad. If using suction, skip this step. With your silicone dispenser gun loaded and a mixer tip installed, place the mixer tip into the hole in the distal end pad injection valve. Inject silicone evenly into the socket until it overflows onto the valve. Let the silicone set for approximately 15 minutes and then remove the distal end pad injection valve and drill bit if using vacuum. Place a 5/16" hole punch into the center of the distal base threaded hole. Punch a hole through the silicone until it reaches the limb model. Draw your socket trim lines and trim the socket. XtremityTT requires an anterior trim line of 2.5 centimeters proximal to MPT to maximize socket strength and maintain warranty. Remove the socket and smooth and buff the proximal brim of the socket. Ensure the outer surface of the brim is smooth to preserve suspension sleeve life. Using the rotary cutting stylus, trim the nylon along the edge of the silicone distal end pad and remove the nylon to create a smooth transition from the silicone to the inside of the socket. The distal end pad is permanently adhered to the inside of the socket. To install the suction suspension system, insert the air valve filter into the hole in the distal end pad. Insert the air valve base into the threaded hole using the distal end pad valve key. Press the suction release bridge into the base and then add the foam spacer ring. For vacuum suspension, use a 10/32 inch tap to thread the base vacuum port from the distal end. Thread in the vacuum barb into the vacuum port and connect the vacuum hose. Insert the air valve filter and the vacuum valve filter into the respective holes in the distal end pad. Insert the air valve base into the threaded hole using the distal end pad valve key. Install the suction release bridge and insert the foam spacer ring. To install the base plate for all suspension systems, first attach the 4-hole distal adapter to the base plate assembly using the M6 flathead screws, threading them through the base plate assembly into the base ring. If using vacuum, pass the vacuum hose through the hole in the base plate. Line up the base plate holes with the threaded inserts in the distal base and the M4 socket head screws and lock washer. Press the base plate into place and thread in the remaining screws. Adjust the base plate to the desired alignment, then tighten all screws. Loctite and torque all screws to the correct settings. Check the fit of the socket to identify areas that need adjustment. Use a heat gun to heat the area, keeping it at least 2 inches from the socket to ensure even heating. Wearing insulated gloves, adjust the socket as needed. This process can be repeated multiple times throughout the lifetime of the prosthesis to ensure a comfortable fit for your patient, allowing them to spend less time in your clinic and more time living.